Hey everyone, hope your day is going well. We are back with another reaction. I've been slowly learning about the Beatles and the members since I started my music reaction channel and since I started this channel, checking out interviews. I've watched the Get Back documentary. I've read the book of Mal Evans, the roadie. Um, I'm going through their albums chronologically on Patreon. So, learning a lot. And then I saw this pop up, the tour that almost killed George Harrison. I believe this is about the Dark Horse tour. I don't really know anything about it, so I will have a look at this video. People, if you have anything to add, or if they omitted something or got anything wrong, let me know. Let's check this out.
The next move will be Madison Square Garden. After that, I'll probably just collapse. I don't know.
Wow.
When George Harrison left the Beatles behind, an immense weight was lifted from his shoulders. He was free at last. That freedom was heard in his early years as a solo artist. All Things Must Pass showed him as a gigantic composer, full of ideas that finally had room to breathe. Then, with Concert for Bangladesh, he not only made history, he also showed that music could have a greater purpose: to heal, to unite, to help. And then, with Living in the Material World, he achieved a more intimate sound and a more spiritual and philosophical lyrics, as if George had already found his place in the world. But even the highest spirits falter. George entered a stage of personal chaos. His marriage to Pattie Boyd was falling apart. His ideals were crumbling amid addictions, exhaustion, and pressure. He created.
Wow, I had no idea. But, usually when you get to a more peaceful spiritual state, sometimes struggle precedes it. And you learn a lot about yourself. And sometimes you push yourself to the limits. That first line that he said there from that press conference or interview, then I'm probably going to collapse. It's that little bit of dark humor in it, but a lot of truth is said in jest. It's like letting know, like, yeah, this is real, even though I'm kind of saying it jokingly. And yeah, his music, I've only explored just a little bit of his solo music, but I sense his wisdom in the words. I sense the calming effect his voice has and the music as well. Very spiritual. Give me love, give me peace. It's beautiful. Definitely made a big impact on me. My sweet Lord, even though I'm not religious, it's in my head constantly.
His label, Dark Horse Records, while recording a new
Oh,
album,
so that's his label,
and at the
Dark
same
Horse.
time organizing a North American tour. It was a decision that pushed him to his physical and mental limits. During rehearsals in Los Angeles, his voice began to fail. 45 concerts, 26 cities, no time to recover. On stage,
Wow.
George was a shadow of himself. His voice, hoarse and broken, the reinterpretations of his classics, and the long passages of Indian music disconcerted the audience. Critics were quick to attack. What many expected as a triumphant return of a former Beatle ended up being confusing, incomplete, and painful. And what began as a dream turned into a nightmare that almost destroyed him. After the huge success of Concert for Bangladesh in 1971, George Harrison seemed to be at the top. Inspired, creative, surrounded by musicians, friends, and spiritual teachers, he felt ready to build his own universe. Living in the Material World would be released in 1973. Its first single, Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth, would bring him his second number one in the United
Amazing
States,
song.
while Sue Me, Sue You Blues would serve as a mockery of the legal process McCartney was developing to officially dissolve the Beatles. The album remained
I
at
heard
the
about
top
that
of the US
song. I need
charts
to
for
check it
5
out.
weeks, and later that year, he began recording Dark Horse. With a lesser dominance of the religious themes present in his two previous works, the album was recorded during a period of changes in Harrison's personal and professional life. He began a new facet of business with the creation of Dark Horse Records, his record label, a space that reflected his vision of art and life. But at the same time, George was splitting up with Pattie.
Are there any artists? I don't know if he signed a lot of artists. Is the label still around today? Maybe we'll find out in this video. I don't know. Maybe it's something that was already done before he even passed away. I'm not sure. So I'm learning as we go here, but it's very interesting to learn about.
I didn't music. What's rebuttal? I mean, that sounds nasty for a kick-off. I mean, I just like
Kind
to
of
sort that one
question is
out. I love Eric Clapton's been a close friend for years, and I'm very happy, about it. And I'm very friendly with him, sure.
How can you be happy about that?
Because he's great. I'd rather she was with him than some dope.
Ah,
There's nothing to say, really.
was there some crossover with girlfriends and what? Oh, wait a second. Am I missing something here? I thought he was just happy for the success. Is there somebody, his ex? I don't know. I'm not going to speculate here, but sounded like. Let me know, guys.
Afterward, everyone would sit down and smoke dope. From time to time, there might be some cocaine which crept into our repertoire. George developed an interesting and extreme relationship with it. He was either using it every day or not at all for months at a stretch. Then he would be spiritual and clean and would meditate for hour after hour with no chance of normality. During these periods, he was totally withdrawn, and I felt alone and isolated. Then, as if the pleasures were too hard to resist, he would stop meditating, snort coke, have fun, flirting and partying. Although it was more companionable, there was no normality in that either. George used coke excessively, and I think it changed him. Cocaine was different, and I think it froze George's emotions and hardened his heart.
George stepped back. And that step back to me means that he got very heavily into drugs and things, which I don't know the reason why that happened.
Yeah, well, after I split up from Patty, I went on a bit of a bender to make up for all the years I'd been married. If you listen to Simply Shady on Dark Horse, it's all in there. My whole life at that time was a bit like Miss Dale's diary.
I'm going to have to keep that one in mind. Hey, man, I've been sober now for 4 years, and I've experimented with many things, You just come across it in life. You choose to do something, and then that choice, affects a lot of things. But sometimes we respond to these substances in a different ways. If you have a predisposition for it, genetically, just your environment, the time in your life, where you're at in your mind, in your relationships, it all has an effect, on those choices, and then how you deal with that. Yeah, man. Damn, I didn't know about this.
Consumed by anxiety, exhaustion, and a deep need for validation, George was not only writing a new album, he was also organizing his first solo tour, and he was doing it all at the same time.
Is there a paradox
That's a lot,
between
man.
being spiritual and being on tour with a band?
It is difficult, It's good practice in a way, because it's to be, like they say, be in the world but not of the world. I mean, that's, a famous saying. You go to the Himalayas and miss it completely, and yet you can be stuck in the middle of New York and be very spiritual. It brings out a certain thing in myself. Then somehow, you have to look within yourself, otherwise you go crackers.
George Harrison's 1974 tour was the first North American tour by a former Beatle since 1966, which generated great expectations among fans of the media. It also marked his return to the stage after the successful concert for Bangladesh in 1971. However, Harrison made it clear that he did not intend to repeat that formula or relive his past with the Beatles. At a press conference prior to the tour, Harrison stated that the Beatles weren't that good compared to the musicians he had worked with afterwards, and ruled out any possibility of reuniting with Paul McCartney. During the tour, he only included 4 Beatles songs: Something, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, For You, Baloo, and In My Life. His band combined soul,
such a great
jazz,
song.
and rock.
I definitely need to check out the others. I know all those titles. I've known them, some of them, like My Guitar Gently Weeps, before I even started this channel. And it's one of those things you would say, yeah, I know it, but I actually don't know it. I only know the title because it's so iconic. It's kind of wild, right? If you think about it. And yeah, he said certain things about the Beatles, and I imagine other Beatles have said things about the Beatles. But are we gonna, people change minds, people say things, if you're in the public eye, it all gets recorded and you can't erase it. But, we've said so many things about people in our lives, and then you could take it back, and it's never recorded. So it might as well never happened, right? But here, everybody's always in the public eye held accountable to their words from 10, 20, 30 years ago, right? Like, damn, you can't make any mistake. You can't blurt anything out. You can't say what you feel in the moment because it's going to come back to haunt you. If you're having a bad day and you say something, yeah.
Rock musicians,
Yeah,
while
that's
Ravi
tough.
Shankar led a group of renowned Indian classical musicians. Both groups played separately, as well as together, fusing sounds from East and West.
I love
Working on the
that.
tour, coupled with his commitments to his label Dark Horse Records, and promoting artists such as Splinter and Ravi Shankar, delayed the completion of his own
Ravi
album,
Shankar,
Dark Horse,
legendary.
which he had to finish in a hurry between rehearsals in Los Angeles. The Dark Horse tour began on November 2nd of 1974. 45 concerts in just a month and a half. An intense, exhausting, almost suicidal tour. George was not ready. He'd been dragging a severe laryngitis. He was physically and spiritually exhausted. And the worst, he had spent years without singing live. The Beatles' concerts used to last 30 minutes. These ones lasted more than 2 hours. On top of that, his cocaine consumption was increasing. His voice began to break. And when he finally went on stage, he was not the same George Harrison.
Recommended by Eric Clapton, Barbara Streisand, and many other top-notch singers and entertainers. And your throat will never bother you again. You just won't have a throat.
You just won't have a throat. It's only hearsay, cocaine use. I don't know if it bled over into the live performances. I don't know if he actually did it before stage or in the studio, or it was just off, at other times. But what I've heard about it, I don't know. As this is only hearsay, people. Only hearsay, that it, numbs your throat and you clamp up. And, if I had that feeling, you can't even speak anymore at times, right? This is hearsay only, of course. I would be hiding in a corner. I'm looking at a corner in my room right now. It's a nice 90-degree corner. It's stable. It's always 90 degrees in the corner. And I would hide there. I would definitely not go on stage and open my mouth. Oh, whew.
His voice, raspy and without strength, clashed with the audience's expectations. The same audience that had idealized him as the wise Beatle, the spiritual Beatle. But now they saw him rewriting lyrics, nagging fans, and giving sermons rather than concerts.
Yeah, his voice probably was very weak, or and beat up, and maybe a lot of people they saw bored with the Indian set. But that did not deter George. And by the way, not everybody was bored with it, and not everybody thought that his voice sounded horrible. They just loved hearing those songs and him trying to deliver them the best he could.
Yeah, you could only focus on the negative, of course. You can try to find a positive or find a nuance in certain situations, and also have some empathy. And not because you're wise and spiritual and you meditate. Like I do a lot of those things as well, but that doesn't mean you're enlightened. You still get mad when you're stuck in traffic sometimes, or when somebody's nagging at your ears, gnawing your ears off. You're not above that. You just try to work on yourself. But man, it's you fail every day. So yeah, you can't hold people to such high bar. They're human.
By Los Angeles, at the first of 3 shows at the Forum, more than Harrison's voice seemed to be cracking. After an 8-second response, more a yawn than a hand, for a new song called Maya Love, Harrison told the house, I don't know how it feels down there, but from up here, you seem pretty dead. Later, his voice breaking, he angrily lectured someone in the audience who'd screamed out a request for Bangladesh. I have to rewrite the song, but don't just shout Bangladesh. Give them something to help. You can chant Krishna, 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 and maybe you'll feel better. But if you just shout Bangladesh, 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 it's not going to help anybody. His fans expected a triumphant return, full of classics, but George had other plans. He fused rock with Indian music, spirituality with show business, and Beatles songs with religious messages. Some of these reinterpretations didn't go down well. He changed the line, something in the way she moves, to, if there's something in the way, remove it.
Yeah, I don't know. Some fans might not like it, but I kind of like that. I understand where he's coming from. I really do. And I understand the fans that were upset too. You know, I see both sides, especially when you go there, you spend money to go there, you have certain expectations, and those are not met. And even sometimes people having a kind of a breakdown, or they're upset, or they're stressed on stage, and they lash out, you know, because you're so tired, you're exhausted, and your judgment is maybe not what it is supposed to be. And this is all in the public eye. Oh, man. That pressure, I would cave. I would cave.
While my guitar gently weeps became, while my guitar tries to smile. And the most controversial, in my life, I love God more.
Was that controversial? How so?
God more.
Why is that controversial? I don't know. Maybe it's different times, maybe different cultures. Because here in Belgium, I think, you know, not for nothing, but some of us might have, you know, a higher tolerance for things like this. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me. You know, I'm not up on all of this, you know, on all these things. Maybe I'm just so ignorant that for me, I have a pretty high tolerance for something being controversial.
For many, that was unforgivable. Half of the
Really?
show was Indian classical music,
I don't
led
understand
by
it.
Ravi Shankar
Explain,
and his
please.
orchestra.
Explain.
A culturally rich proposal, yes, but for many Western fans, puzzling and boring. They didn't understand what they were seeing. His
I
stage
understand
presence
that,
seemed
though.
erratic, under-rehearsed. He spent more time talking than playing, and when he sang, his voice didn't respond. And as if that wasn't enough, his lyric changes, his preaching, and his absent energy caused the media to trash him. The tour was harshly criticized. The New Yorker called it an unfortunate experience. Even the commercial achievements were
sad.
quickly deflated. His album Dark Horse reached number 5 in the US, but didn't even chart in the UK. The album's title single reached number 15 on Billboard, but the enthusiasm was evaporating. George
Look,
was
for me, that creates even more like an interest for me to check it out. Like I've always been this way with books and films. If I see a negative review, I want to check it out. I'm not the guy like, oh, everybody's saying negative things, you know, nowadays on social media with movies, you see that a lot, right? Oh, it's so bad. People are telling it's so bad, I'm not going to watch it. No, because of that, I now want to watch it myself for my own opinion. So in the book too, if somebody has a negative review, I immediately get the urge to check it out.
on the brink. Between the pressure, the expectations, his failed marriage, the addiction,
Damn.
the public discontent, and his own voice cracking night after night. It was all piling up.
That
It all
is a
clashed.
lot. That
What
is a
began
lot.
as a dream became a nightmare that almost destroyed him. The people in the audience were eager for a good time, having paid up to $19 a pair for tickets. But moments of real gladness were few. Harrison and Billy Preston formed a two-man kick line on the stage. At the end, everyone sang My Sweet Lord for the encore, and Harrison delivered a sort of sermon over the music. Afterward, he said, "See you in 8 years," and ran off.
Man, he was at the end. He had enough.
Rolling Stone. Were you going down fast? George Harrison. Well, I wasn't ready to join Alcoholics Anonymous or anything. I don't think I was that far gone. But I could put back a bottle of brandy occasionally. plus all the other naughty things that fly around. I just went on a binge, went on the road, all that sort of thing, until it got to a point where I had no voice, and almost nobody at times. Then I met Olivia, and it all worked out fine.
Yeah, man. You need that in your life sometimes. Get you back on track, back on the rails.
In the midst of the chaos, George sought a new purpose. While struggling with pressure from his record label and preparing for the tour that would bring him to the brink of collapse, he opened the offices of Dark Horse Records on La Brea Avenue in Los Angeles. It was there that he met Olivia Arias, a young A&M Records worker. At first, it was just a professional relationship, but soon enough, something deeper began to blossom. George and Olivia connected long distance, first by phone. They shared interests that went beyond music: meditation, spirituality, Indian culture, and that longing for peace amidst the noise. Soon after, Olivia formally joined the Dark Horse team, working alongside Terry Doran and Jack Oliver. And in 1974, when the Dark Horse tour kicked off, she was his official partner. She accompanied him all over the US as he crumbled on every stage. George, who had been dealing with addictions and a disordered life for years, found a new path in Olivia. He would later say that it was she who saved him.
Nice.
And with her, he made one of the
relate.
most important decisions of his life: to tidy up and start over. When the tour ended in December 1974, George Harrison was completely destroyed. Physically, mentally, and spiritually exhausted, he decided to walk away from the stage. He would not tour again for 17 years.
Wow.
And he said with irony, but also with pain, "I'm never doing this again. If you see me on tour again, I'll be disguised as someone else." And let's not forget something. This was the first US tour by a former Beatle. John never did it. Paul came later, Ringo too. There was immense excitement, overflowing anticipation. But what was
could
promised to
never
be a
meet
glorious
that
return
expectation.
turned out to be something completely different. What many saw as a disaster was actually something more complex. The Dark Horse tour was an act of resistance, a way of saying, "I'm not going to be what you expect." George no longer wanted to please. He wanted to explore, to search, to be wrong, to be himself. And even though the world wasn't ready to see him like that, he had the courage to show himself at his most vulnerable. And maybe in that too, he was a pioneer.
Respect.
To expose yourself when you're at your darkest moment. That's not something just anyone does.
100%.
Anyway, it's nice working with you, and it's nice to know that the best sales force in the world is selling Dark Horse Records. Don't drink too much, and I'll see you in... Thanks a lot again. Keep up the good work, and in the meantime, I'm just going to write my new album, which goes like this. You can go your own way. Oh no, that's not it.
He definitely had a sense of humor, and all of them have. I've checked out some of the funny moments, and in Get Back, he had some. You could have that little bit of that snark, which I love. Man, I respect the hell out of George Harrison. It's unfortunate that I discovered him so late. When he passed away, I think I might have been 14 or 15 years old. And of course, I knew just in the back of my mind, of the Beatles, but that was about it. I do think they came at the right time in my life to really, really appreciate them. But it's bittersweet because it's in the past, and George isn't here anymore. And man, it's tough to be suffering and going through struggles in the public eye, having those expectations, not wanting to deliver on that. You wanted to be your own person. It's a tug of war inside of your mind, and maybe one day you're convinced of one principle in your mind, and the other day you convince yourself, maybe I should go the other way. It's tough. And then factor in alcohol, drugs, critics. It's tough, man. And then that pressure you put on yourself, and it's like running 10 marathons, just every day, your vocal cords. Oh man, the fans are upset. Tough, but he did reinvent himself, not only as an artist, but just as a person. And maybe not entirely reinvent himself. It was always in there, but really, just came to terms with it, I guess. A thing that we all would love to, a place that we all want to reach. Respect to George Harrison. Thank you, everybody, for checking this out with me. Hope you have a wonderful day. Goodbye.